So we'll get right into it here. And today we are joined with Ricardo Carioni and Thomas Gryson, the co-founders of the Cigar Academy. Thank you for joining us today on the Cigar Snob podcast, gentlemen.
Thank you, Ivan.
Thank you, Ivan. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here connecting with you and the fantastic team of Cigar Snob.
Welcome. We're coming to everybody here from very different settings. We have Ricardo here in a very exotic location, which seems like some jungle paradise, and we have Thomas at some very elegant humidor lounge looking area, and then we have me in a boring living room without a cigar, but that's neither here nor there. But where are you guys?
Well, this is the amount of production that goes into this podcast and everyone participating in it, right? This is sort of the perfect picture of the life cycle of a cigar. I'm at the origin, one of the origins. I'm in Nicaragua, actually. So yeah, while you hear roosters in the background and mango trees and palm trees and guavas and so on, this is what gives these cigars, I think, that unique flavor. But then obviously, Thomas, you're in a beautiful part of the world. I love where you are.
Yeah, I'm based in Belgium, and this is my smoking lounge. So I enjoy this interview, sitting in my own lounge, enjoying a cigar. And Belgium, of course, obviously is in Europe. And I'm also very grateful to be part of this podcast.
I see I spy with my little Churchill up there on your side.
Yes. I have a Churchill on one side, and on the other side, I have a tobacco jar that belongs to my grandparents.
Oh, wow.
So it's a very old, like Chinese, but I'm not sure it's Chinese, but it's for me, it's valuable.
And I'm still drying a little bit of the rain that I caught in Miami, what I would say is the epicenter of the cigar world, right? The big leagues of the cigar world. So, Ivan, you're in your home, but hopefully the rain will allow you to go out of your home at some point sooner than later.
Hopefully soon. Yeah, we've been flooded in, so I wasn't able to get to the office today, so I won't be joining you with cigars. But later on today, we'll be doing a Win Stuff Live, so I'll be getting there eventually. But before we get into the rest of the podcast, why don't you give us a little bit of background about yourselves, where you guys usually are located, maybe how your cigar journey started, and maybe how you met.
Yeah, so I will start maybe. So my name is Thomas Gryson. I'm born in a tobacco family. My grandparents, they had a tobacco factory in Belgium. But my own journey with cigars started when I was 25. I started to smoke cigars, enjoy cigars, mainly at the start from Cuba, but soon after I discovered cigars from other parts of the world, Dominican Republic and Honduras, Nicaragua. And I really fell in love with cigars. I'm also working in the cigar industry. I'm traveling quite a lot, meeting importers, clients, cigar lovers. And I think at this point with the Cigar Academy, I reached some, let's say, a passion for me that I can combine cigars and education and training. So that's a little bit my background.
And Ricardo?
Yep. So yeah, I'm here in my home, in my country, in Nicaragua, where I was born. Left my country when I was 18. And since then, I've been a bit of a gypsy, living in 7 different countries, studying, working, or studying around. So I've been around quite a bit. Nowadays, I live in Spain, live in southern Spain, Denia, near Valencia. And yeah, I mean, I was not born in a cigar family, but I was born in a cigar country. So that's my initial connection. So remember my first cigars at 15 years old, coming from Esteli, unbanded, on a quinceañera, on a 15th birthday celebration, which are very big on this side of the world. And that was my introduction to cigars. But I actually went deeper into it whilst I used to live in Great Britain, in London. Back there, before leaving there, I received a call from the government, from presidency, asking me to invite me, from the Foreign Office, to invite me to join as a diplomat, to become Nicaragua's deputy ambassador to the UK, to Ireland, and to Iceland. And in that process of representing my country in these countries, cigars became naturally the perfect instrument to be able to connect and have great conversations. We used to call it, we even coined the phrase with the ambassador of Cyprus in London, of cigar diplomacy, something that we didn't begin with. We know great statesmen from around the world, including Churchill, and Fidel Castro, many people, or good or bad, doesn't matter. Lots of people enjoy and use cigars as a means of connecting with people for their interest. So it's interesting because people wouldn't know much about Nicaragua, but they would know about the cigars. And that was back in 2016. Since then, I joined Toro Imports as a COO. They're the leading importer, distributor, some of the great brands from Nicaragua, from Honduras, from Mexico, from Dominican Republic. Had a short stint as CEO of Jacinta, which is the Spanish version, if you want to put it, of Toro Imports. And yes, I actually met Thomas in London. It was I believe that's the first time we saw each other, Thomas, when I was your client, essentially. I was buying Oliva cigars in this case, to be able to sell and distribute to cigar aficionados and professionals, actually, to the trade in London. And very early on, and one of the reasons Thomas came to that visit was to train us, to train my team. And really early on, we started realizing we're speaking sort of the same language with different accents, obviously very difficult, different cultural backgrounds, but we share a common passion, a common love for the language of cigar making, for the process of cigar making. And that's where we connected straight away. And with time, we started realizing that in both of our jobs, me as an imported distributor and Thomas as the export manager for the cigar company, we had a common mission, constantly educating, if you want to put it that way, but more than anything, is transmitting the knowledge that we were drinking from the cigar makers and helping people in the trade to have that know-how of the products that allows them to be more effective in their process of selling cigars to aficionados, but also being able to enjoy them in a different level, beyond just what you would see in great magazines like yours, but also in stuff that's being shared and told at the factories, at the farms. And that storytelling, the history of the families, that's where we find each other sort of doing it in different capacities, right? And that was the moment, I'm sure we'll get into it, but that was the moment, I think, when we realized that we both have found a gap in the market in terms of offering a program, a platform to not only educate people, not only allow them to become more knowledgeable, both aficionados and the trade, the tobacconists, which I think we'll speak about today, but also a way of preserving this knowledge. So in many ways, I studied anthropology at University College, cultural anthropology, and we've always had this desire to keep cultures, right? To keep languages for future generations. And it was an observation of seeing how many people will talk about cigars and say things that weren't really true, quite genuinely. So how do we make an effort? How do we put a little bit of a grain of salt? How do we help the cigar industry to preserve the real cigar making language and how people can access it in an easy, user-friendly way? And that's where the magic began for us.
Very good. And I think that's a great segue into basically why we brought you on. And our episode this week was basically, how do you know if a tobacconist is knowledgeable or not? So we've all been into retailers, and you guys are experienced. Some people are not quite as experienced when they walk into the retailer and they need some help. They need to know, what fits their palate, or what they're looking for, or what they should be trying as a beginner, or maybe something new. But there isn't quite a way, without like being a certified tobacconist or walking around with a badge, which doesn't happen. You have no idea if this person knows what they're talking about or not, where then our discussion goes into, finding out the best ways of realizing this. And I guess this is where you guys, when you guys met, you said maybe this is a way that we can start educating consumers, we can educate retailers, to not only the retailers to sell more cigars, but maybe for consumers to start enjoying them more. And I guess this is where the beginning of the Cigar Academy started, right?
So we both realized that when we enjoy cigars, it can be more than enough. But if you are in the trade, if you are a professional, and you have a client coming in the shop, they expect, because we are talking about a beautiful craftsmanship, a product that is made with a lot of passion and love, but with knowledge, heritage. And as a cigar smoker or beginner, you want to learn something. And some of these people, they love to just enjoy the cigar and get good advice about their taste, their palate. But some other people, they want to learn more. And we realized that today there is a lot of information that you can find, sometimes in books, sometimes on the internet, of course, also in magazines, but it's all a little bit scattered. And so we came with the project that we want to bring all this knowledge that is with the cigar makers together in one platform. And this will allow the retail, the trade, the professionals to learn, but not only from us, but from the cigar makers itself. So the content, all the information that is from the tobacco seed until the final product, the curing, the fermentation, everything. And this is also, evolving. We are talking about a traditional product, traditional way of making a product, all handmade. But still, today, there are a lot of innovation projects, mainly, of course, in Honduras, Nicaragua, and the Dominican Republic. And we try to bring all this information together, comprehensive, very accessible. And at the end, of course, when you go through this information and you learn and you study a little bit, you can get a certification. And that certification, is provided by the cigar makers. And this is very important because when you are in a shop and you talk with a shop owner or an employee selling the cigars, you want to trust that person. And if he had, for example, in our case, the level 1 award, it's a lot of theory, but this is the basics. This is what you have to know, that you have to, maybe later on you can check again, you can read a little bit more, but this is the basics that you have to know if you want to talk about cigars with confidence.
So we hear the term, in at least in wine, sommelier. I mean, is this comparable to like a cigar sommelier? So if you were to walk into a retailer, this has never happened, but and you ask for a recommendation, and you ask somebody and they're like, here, let me get our cigar sommelier or certified tobacconist from the Cigar Academy to come help you. I mean, that already elevates the level of the retailer that I've walked into, right? If they're going through this additional like step, just as you would if you were walking a restaurant and you ask for a wine recommendation and they bring you a specific person that's knowledgeable with this. Is this comparable to a sommelier?
I think in many ways, this is sort of the creating the standard precisely of an individual, of a professional. We could call it a sommelier, we could call it a tobacconist, that has the standard, that has the knowledge base, not only in the process of the cigar making, but also in the process of advising. It's almost like you go to a doctor. I have to say, there's a short story I want to share with you where this sort of came and I had that light bulb moment. At least for me, that was a moment. Particularly in London. London has a great number of cigar lounges. And I've spent, again, a lot of time also in the US. I lived in Miami. I lived in Texas. Great cigar shops. And I'll tell you 2 quick stories that compare both sides and how tobacconists and the experience as an undercover, say, member of the cigar industry. I remember going to London to one of the most beautiful lounges. This is on my first year as a diplomat in London. That would have been in 2016. And I walk into this gorgeous lounge right across from Hyde Park, as London Mayfair style as it gets, right? I walked in and this very elegant, educated cigar sommelier, Italian, because in London, the majority of the cigar sommeliers are Italians. They know how to do their job with such an elegance. And the first thing I ask him when I come with my little Nicaraguan pin, with a little flag, as a diplomat, very proud, and I ask him for a cigar from my country. And this very educated sommelier, he says, we only sell Cuban cigars. I am a Habano cigar sommelier. So he had already the title, the certificate, and the knowledge provided by Habanos, provided by the conglomerate of the cigar brands made in Cuba. And he had undertaken that course of study that made him the guy. This is the man that he looks at you and he would ask you, well, what did you eat? Or what about to eat? Where are you going to smoke this? What do you typically smoke? So he has that ability as a good doctor to be able to understand its patient, in this case, his cigar aficionado, and advise, suggest, or answer any questions or doubts. And I was quite impressed by his knowledge, but quite disappointed, clearly, the fact that cigars from my country, when I'm realizing not only Nicaragua, but Honduras and Dominican, they're the real powerhouses of the cigar world. But let's keep in mind, this is London, and Habanos is one of his biggest markets, right? And I kept going to the same cigar lounge over time with other diplomats. I will bring the ambassador of Honduras, I'll bring the ambassador of Mexico, the ambassador of Dominican Republic, and the same answer constantly, no. Till one day, the sommelier comes to me when he changes jobs and he says, Ricardo, I have to be frank with you. The reason why I wasn't selling, I was only selling Cuban cigars is very simple. He said, look, I've almost had 2 decades of being one of the most respected cigar sommeliers, cigar knowledgeable people here in this country. I have a great reputation that I built. But when I started my journey, they were very clear, the people from Habanos in this case, and the reporter in the UK, how do you form yourself? How do you educate yourself in this process? What do you need to do? How long it takes? What do you need to study? And how do you get that certificate that now I put it in my CV, he says, and allows me to get jobs around anywhere in Europe that I want to get a job in. And that's when I thought, you know what? You've been absolutely honest and I've been unfair. I've been asking something from you that risks your own job. Because we don't have, at least at a global scale, something similar to what would be, I would compare the Cigar Academy to the WSTE, which is the wine and spirits standard, right? When it comes into education and studies. And that's something we don't have. And Habanos have it for Europe. So that's what we say. We need to create something like this where people not only have access to the knowledge, they know exactly the levels they need to take to learn the process and be able to be effective at their jobs. But as Thomas says, very, very importantly, that the certificate that they get at the end, this is not Thomas and Ricardo's academy. This content wasn't just written by us. This was co-written with the cigar maker. So in that sense as well, when you get a certificate as a level 1, level 2, and the diploma, the 3rd level of the academy, this is provided, endorsed by the members of the academy. The only members of the academy are the cigar makers. And these are, yes, the leading brands, if you want to put it, some of the most renowned brands from Nicaragua, Honduras, Dominican Republic, and so on. So that was my London experience. And very short, I had a similar experience that went the other way in Texas. I won't say what store, big store in Texas. And I go in there and I start asking questions about some of the cigars to the gentleman who was looking after me then. And after a couple of questions, the manager of the store comes in. And he pulls me to the side and says, Señor, Mr. Carioni, okay, tell me something. Who do you work with? Why are you asking all these questions? Why are you being so curious about the provenance and the tobaccos? Where do they come from? So I was asking all these geeky questions that it would be my expectation to someone in the trade to be able to answer with a level of fluidity to be able to help me make my choice, right, in the cigar choosing process. And it's not I would say a negative criticism. Is simply an observation where there is an opportunity because of the number of cigar shops in the United States, in this case, for instance, and the number of staff from all over different backgrounds that would benefit greatly to have that consolidated program. I know there's some out there, but I think there's still opportunity to do a little bit, take it to the next level. And that's the mission we undertook. And that's what we're planning. That's what we're doing at the moment.
How difficult is it, or let's say, how long would it take to go through all the levels and get through the program? And like, what percentage of people make it through maybe to the end, and how many people get through the middle? And tell us a little about that.
Sure. So we start first with level 1 award. It's very, you can compare it with the WSCT. They also have the level 1 award. They have in total 4 awards, but we have 3. And the last one will be the diploma, the final diploma. So the first level, it's basic, it's theory, but there is a lot of information and there's a lot of details. But then in level 2, it will be a cohort-based course where people all over the world will study together online, but also with hybrid, like physical courses, workshops. But the first level is quite accessible. It's not something like very difficult, but of course, it takes a little bit of time to go through it. It's, when you start studying, it's normal that you first have to start with the basics, with the theory. Try to understand the history. Try to understand the different steps, the processes. Once you get through that, you can go to level 2 and level 3. And I think, Ricardo, maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on this level 2 and level 3.
Absolutely. And to put it into context, already we had some students, we had one that finished the level 1 in less than a month. So it was a matter of weeks. So when you actually register on the website and you purchase your basically your license to be able to get the certificate to study the different modules, there's 14 modules. Some said from before the Spaniards arrive in this part of the world, all the way to the seed and all the way to the final cigar and the selling process. How do we take care of them? How do we preserve them, and so on? How do we pair with wonderful drinks and foods? So those 14 modules, yeah, someone could do it they have up to 3 months basically to complete this typically. So you could calculate from a month to 3 months approximately. Again, depends on the amount of time you're able to dedicate, because this is a self-paced. You're accessing this online from your phone, from your laptops, from your iPads, whatever you want to, and you're watching a series of educational videos, tutoring, videos that showcase the different processes, from drones flying on top of pilones during fermentation to a gentleman doing the cutting of the different primings of the tobacco plants. So it showcases as if you were physically in the factories and the farms. That's level 1. Someone said level 2. Level 2 will take a bit longer. We don't have yet a graduate, because we're still working in launching level 2 and 3. That's taking a little bit of time. We want to make it right. And that might take anything between 3 to 6 months, depending on the cohort, because that's going to be cohort based. That's going to be the key difference between level 1 and level 2. In level 2, we want the same group of people from different parts of the world to start together and graduate together, because they will have access to cigar makers that will come in as we're joining today and have a lecture on one of the topics of the different modules that we'll be studying. There will be occasions where we'll have a special private events. We'll be sampling the tobaccos that make the cigar. So ultimately, people being able to learn the nomenclature of tobaccos, which is a key thing here. And I'll mention something about it. And it comes into the relationship of the term that we use as sommelier, perhaps in the wine world, primarily a European tradition. And what we envision to be the way more and more going forward that people talk when they talk about cigars and what they feel and how they describe them, right? So the third level after this one will take, again, could be another 6 months. So we're talking, could be up to a year, over a year and 3 months, the whole thing. If you go from level 1 up to graduation with a diploma. Now that diploma, and that's the beauty of it, is you would have undertaken by then a lot of theory. You would have gone through workshops. You would have gone through guest lecturers online. And then to graduate, the final step is to actually go to the origins, to go to the factories and the farms. So in order to finalize your degree, to get your diploma, you will have to spend time and do a little bit of the practice of all the theory that you already have in your head. You'll be able to get, the bit of soil in your nails and go to the farms. Go and get some of that tobacco color in your fingertips as you start doing some fermentation or curing barns, putting some of the leaves in there. So we want people to really connect in a physical way to that process. Of course, we're not going to make them cigar makers. That's not the point. But at least that when someone says, I have a diploma from the Cigar Academy, they know they have the theory and they have the practice well cemented and well based, and they're well versed in being able to guide people, because they really know the product making, the process of the cigar making.
So you can go through the entire process, and you don't necessarily have to, for example, be able to blind taste broadleaf and be able to differentiate that between a San Andres. But if you've put in all of this effort and gone through all of this knowledge-based training, the chances are that you are going to be able to do this, because you are so invested into it that makes you, you have a higher likelihood of knowing this than anybody else.
Absolutely. And that's a key part of this. And I love you mentioned this. I remember when I started reading more magazines and I started getting into the industry a little bit more in depth. And I started reading the cigar reviews, and people were, and that's genuine how they feel about it, right? But they were saying, oh, I feel the hay, and I can feel the leather that comes with the tobacco. And here I am thinking, there must be something wrong with me, because I don't feel anything of that. I'm enjoying the cigar. And that at the stage, at the initial stage, that was about it. I like it or I don't like it. And then I started developing my knowledge. And the best piece of advice that I had by a great cigar maker, when she learned that I was a part of the industry, and I said, Ricardo, what you need to do is you need to smoke as many puritos, as many single varietal puritos of tobaccos, to really understand the different parts, the different components, the different varietals that make that final blend and that final cigar. So precisely, smoke a lot of San Andres, Negro San Andres, smoke a lot of Jalapa, Ligeros, Habanos, smoke some Ecuadorian, Connecticut. Get really into them and try to, the more you smoke them, in fact, go to a dark room all by yourself, turn off the lights, shut the noise, and just smoke and memorize that and make that sort of you want to compare it to a periodic table of elements, when you have all this nomenclature, and then you're able to understand as you're smoking that cigar and say, I get it. So this is the San Andres that I smoke by itself. Or I can feel a bit of that sweetness from that Jalapa tobacco that's very prevalent in that blend from that cigar brand. And ultimately, yes, there will be exercises in levels 2 and level 3 where we'll challenge and we'll educate and we'll challenge a little bit of the capacity of tasting some of these tobaccos for the people undertaking, the students undertaking the courses, to a point where they feel comfortable saying, I can taste that tobacco. I can see that what it is. And eventually we start talking in those terms. We start talking and saying, there is a perfectly fermented Condega Viso in these fillers. Or I can see how the Ecuadorian Connecticut combines with that binder from that Corojo or that Piloto Cubano from the Dominican Republic. So that's ultimately the way we wish we had a way of also communicating. Because when we think of sommeliers, that's the point I wanted to make as well. It's a European tradition, quite genuine, right? It's the tradition of being able to understand wines and liquids are a lot easier, I think, to compare to fruits or to other things, right? To be able to relate and convey a flavor before somebody actually tastes it, so they know or they have an idea what they're going to be drinking, right? But when it comes to a process where it involves a combustion of a dead leaf that's fermented, it's a very different thing. And ultimately, we Latin Americans, where the cigars are made primarily, we're an experiential culture in that sense. So I think when a cigar maker is trying to convey a message, a feeling, a passion through the blend that he's created, I suspect, and I never heard a cigar maker telling me, Ricardo, do you feel that chocolate hints in my blend? Never. And I've never seen them doing through a blending session where they're making a new cigar, going through that process. It's more about understanding the quality of the processes that impacted that leaf and where the origin of the leaf is and how they combine with each other. So that's where sommelier, we don't use it in our academy. We thought of it. We also thought of the word maestro, master, because there's a lot of masters out there. So I'm a master cigar sommelier. And we felt, and this is a good lesson that we have from a cigar maker that came to us and he said, look, guys, what do you think is someone who says he's a master in cigars? What does it take to become a master? Do you think spending 2 or 3 years, 5 years studying and selling or even making cigar makes you a master? And this is a gentleman who had 200 league blends made and one of the leading number and had Cigar Aficionados #1 and so on. And he said, I myself, I'm not a maestro. I'm not a master. There's a handful of masters in our industry that had decades growing, processing, and selling cigars. Those are the real masters. But everybody else, really, we're only students of the leaf. We're only learning and listening to tobaccos that are teaching us how to go about them. The tobacco teaches us. It's not us going out there and telling tobacco what to do.
You can have a lot of black belts, but not a lot of masters out there.
There you go. I love
And
that.
those masters, and I'm pretty sure I know the few that you're talking about. The original, like Jose Orlando Padron and Pepe Garcia and Julio Iroa. Yeah, I'm sure that
those are the ones. And
yeah.
those are the ones that this platform, and this is again the idea of nurturing, of preserving and sharing this knowledge as we go on and we keep evolving the content. As Thomas said, is something that is going to be constantly being added. We're going to have a section where we're going to have the cigar makers themselves talking. So when you have Don Julio Iroa talking about it himself, if you have someone like Don Pepin Garcia talking about it, someone like Nestor Plasencia, and all these masters sharing the knowledge and being kept there, preserved, for people to be able to go and drink from it. Those of us who've had an opportunity to sit with this gentleman know how that's changed your lives quite genuinely and how it can impact you in not only in your knowledge, but your passion really for a cigar.
Very cool. I will say that on the Cigar Snob podcast, we get a lot of feedback, and the #1 either question or just comments that we have is always related to palate. It's how do you develop it? How do you pick up flavors? What are the most common flavors? That's usually we hit like a nerve. Like when we started the podcast, we didn't think it was gonna evolve into that direction, but everybody's very curious to know that. So I'm sure that that's not the entire part of what like you would learn on the Cigar Academy, but that's something that you would develop also.
Yeah, just one small comment about this. I think when you want to learn more about developing your palate, first of all, you need to smoke cigars, enjoy cigars from different regions. But here the Cigar Academy comes in because we are bringing all the different pieces together on one place. And it's much more easier to understand a difference between taste and cigars when you understand the background, when you understand from where is the tobacco coming, from where is that region, why is it taste sun-grown, Maduro is different to Habano not sun-grown, shade-grown. And when you start having this information, it will be much more easier and better for you to understand, okay, I am developing my taste. It doesn't need to be, like Ricardo said, vanilla or chocolate. No, you start to understand the tobacco. This is the variety, probably it's coming from there. It has been fermented longer or aged longer. And this is information that we all bring together in one platform so that the information, the background information, the theory, but also the practice, of course, comes together. And then you will start developing your taste. And this is what we try to do with the Cigar Academy.
And on that note, very briefly, if I can just add on that, is also it's the cultures behind it, right? And the cultures of the family of the cigar makers and the countries themselves. So that's also part of the whole learning experience, right? That you're able to then connect not only to the final bit, which is very attractive. And like you say, that's where people, they're very curious and there's great debates about the flavors and the strength. A lot of people confuse flavor and strength of a cigar, how the profile that it has, but being able to understand where did that start? Where did that family started? Was in the Canary Islands, and then they moved to Cuba, and from Cuba they moved to Nicaragua. What kind of experiences and challenges they went through, the countries themselves, the soils of that country, Nicaragua, 28 volcanic structures. Volcanoes are part of our nature, and that comes across in that flavor, in that cigar, in that profile, understanding the mix of different cultures that settle in these parts of the world. All of that knowledge just creates a more holistic and more comprehensive way of understanding the culture of cigars and being able to share with others, not just about, this is the vitola and this is where it's made and these are the tobaccos. There's more to it. And there's a romance and there's the stories that go beyond, the individuals that make this. At the end of the day, this is a people thing, right? It's an industry of people that we hear and we tell ourselves all the time because it's the reality. It's how human experiences are transmitted through this wonderful, wonderful creation.
One last little story here, just to piggyback on that. So we do a fashion shoot that we do, and I'm sure you've seen it in our magazine there. So we assemble a group of like 10 people, and this is made up of photographers, hair, makeup, model. It's a very diverse crew, and the only people that smoke cigars there are probably Eric, Yami, and me, which are the 3 cigar people. Everybody else comes from like the entertainment talent industry, what have you. So we take a trip down to the Dominican Republic and we go visit Carlito Fuentes' factory, which if you've never been there, it's a dream. It looks like you're walking into Disney World when you walk in there. So we get there, this team of like 12, maybe 80% of them are non-smokers. And just being there for a few hours, everybody was just so enamored with the process and the attention to detail at every corner that you take in this building that everybody was dying to smoke a cigar. So that just goes back to your point that you have to go back to the root. And once you get to the base, to the foundation, to the root, that's where you really immerse yourself into the culture.
Absolutely. So much more complex in a good way than just that final bit. In fact, my wife, she never smoked cigars. She was never interested in it. Of course, she loves Nicaragua. That's where I'm from. The first time she went to a farm and she could see the oxen plowing the soil. And on that trip, we actually came with Thomas, I remember. And that's her moment. Now she smokes cigars with me and she has a great palate. She's very straightforward. She's a straight shooter. She would tell me good cigar, bad cigar. Doesn't tell me about the chocolate and the vanillas. But that's right. It can really convert someone who's completely ignorant about the whole cigar world, like it never existed, to really being exposed to that. It makes you fall in love with it. It's just an incredible process of falling in love.
It will open up, and then it will be fantastic journey for all these students. And you can be an experienced cigar smoker, maybe 20 years, but if you go through the courses and you learn a little bit more, you understand the heritage, the background, how the processes are going, in a very comprehensible way, then it opens up and then it becomes even more and more enjoyable product.
Now, one of the good things about having you guys on and you don't have an affiliation to a certain cigar manufacturer is that you can talk about any of them. Usually when we speak to people, they have they're affiliated to one, so they're very biased in their cigar opinions. But Thomas, tell me, I see you smoking a cigar. What is it that you enjoy smoking?
Right now?
Right now, most of the time you can tell us what you're smoking right now, but
Yeah.
for the most part, I see a lot of cigars back there. What do you enjoy the most?
Well, as I told at the beginning, I started to smoke Cuban cigars, but I found out that there are more cigars and from different terroirs. And I like to explore. Of course, I try to explore, but in the premium side, in the handmade cigars. And I found out that there is a lot of different terroirs that I enjoy. But also the way how a cigar is rolled. There are differences between different cigar makers, different regions. So I started to learn more about that. And the cigar that I'm enjoying right now is a smaller Robusto size cigar, perfect for this podcast, like 45 minutes. It's a Habano wrapper, Nicaraguan filler. It's even a brand that I don't know because it was a gift from someone, a good friend. He said, "Try that cigar," and I love that. I want to try it, and with an open mind, I tried the cigar. And of course, every cigar is like with the wine or something. If you smoke it in a nice environment or with friends, it adds flavor. It adds something extra to the cigar. But in my case, I enjoy all the cigars from different regions: Dominican, Nicaragua, Honduras, Mexico, Cuban, of course. But I love the fact how the draw is. I like to explore different taste strengths. It's just a journey and trying to find cigars that pleases my palate. And it's very difficult to say, for example, because most of the people they know I'm a big cigar lover. They say, "What is your favorite cigar?" Well, I don't have one favorite cigar. Of course, I have some like cigars that I always tend to, but for me, the cigar is it made with love and passion. I will try it, and I will tell you this is a cigar that I love.
You danced around the question. You didn't give me any brands, but that's fine. I'm okay. You are a
Yeah.
cigar lover. We can
Uh,
tell.
I'm not a diplomatic, but I learned something from Ricardo, I think.
No, but it's true. And the same for me. And look, I'm very curious and I'm always trying new things. Whatever people give me, I always smoke it. Because that's one of the things that I find really early on that you can't really have an opinion about a brand or a cigar, but just having one or two of them or just closing yourself to a handful that you always continue smoking. I have a very open mind and whatever people give me, I'm always trying them. I go to the stores and I always buy some a couple of things that I like to keep up with in my humidors, the ones I don't like to think about just because it comes so, I know it so well. It's like listening to that song in that original version that you know, and it makes you feel comfortable. It's like my comfy zone. But I also like to be put out of my comfort zone and try things that perhaps is not my, when I smoke and I realize, well, maybe I'm not going to buy a box of this, but I want to understand the process and the creation of the cigar maker. What was his thinking behind it? What was he trying to convey? At the moment, I can tell you, I'm smoking. So I thought in Nicaraguan cigar to begin with in the next 2 weeks that I'll be here. So I'm smoking Saca's cigar. Delicious, delicious. I left a little banner around here. But I love Steve Sack. I love what they do. This is made at Joya de Nicaragua, the original, the very first factory in my country, and it has a lot of flavor, a lot of depth. It's complex, really nicely fermented, fantastic draw, incredible construction. And Steve, I think, is a very creative guy when it comes not only into the blend making process, but also in terms of the marketing and the storytelling that he puts into it. So it's one of the cigar makers that I enjoy, and I can't say what I'm smoking because I mean that's the beauty of the academy. It's a members organization. So if you were to think, I spent some time at UN, United Nations bodies back in my diplomatic days, and there is a way of being able part of a cohort of brands where each one contributes to the whole ecosystem, but you don't really have to favor one over the other. They all have a place, from small boutique brands to 40 million plus cigar brands, from the factories like Disney World and Willy Wonka, like Arturo Fuente, to small boutique brands in Nicaragua and small chinchales even that are very good at making some cigars. So it's about being curious, trying different things. I do like tobaccos from Jalapa a lot. I like the combination of Mexican and Nicaraguan tobaccos in particular. I think those two get along really, really well. But I do like as well well-aged Dominican tobaccos. It's almost like that, like it sounds weird, but it's almost like blue cheese, almost like a dirty socks kind of smell. You know, that in a weird way, but it has a funky side to it. I enjoy that as well. So yeah,
Amazing. Amazing. Do you guys go to a lot of cigar festivals and events?
indeed we do.
Oh, hopefully
Just
I can meet you guys out at the next one because and hopefully it's in Europe, preferably, where it's much higher than it is
I
right now.
was just in a small one recently, this weekend actually in Andorra, a beautiful part of the world as well. And what's interesting one, it was small, but it's for aficionados as well. So it's not just a trade event. We launched the academy at the PCA in Vegas.
yeah,
We're going to Dortmund in September, which is sort of the big cigar trade show at a global scale. So indeed, it's part of the trade. It's part of what we do, both in our previous relationship with brands when I represented some of these brands, as I do nowadays, but I don't represent one single brand. We have the academy, but those are the great places, right? Whether in Europe, whether Puro Sabor, Puro Cigar. I'm curious to go, for example, to the one in Puerto Rico. That's one that I saw some people going out there. And in Dominican Republic, it's incredible the number of cigar events that they do.
Yeah.
I mean, I was thinking there
yeah,
was about 5 of them, but when they started telling me the La Gran Fumada, the Punta Cana, these other ones, so these are great occasions, I feel, to connect. At the end of the day, we all have very busy lives, and the cigar industry, it moves really, really quickly. We always putting fires off all over the place. Things tend to go bad, go wrong, and you have to find a way to put it back into track. But having a moment to be able to connect in person with everyone that's involved, from yourselves, from the media, the people making the cigars, the people selling the cigars, and aficionados, those opportunities are a privilege to be able to attend and be part of. So looking forward to the next one, which in my diary looks like it's going to be Dortmund. Maybe you guys can cross the pond and
We'll be
pay us
there.
a
We'll be
yeah.
there.
And that's also one of the goals of the Cigar Academy. It's bringing people together, and through not only bringing education and training and knowledge on one place, but also building a community of people enjoying cigars and having, the knowledge and the heritage that they can talk, they can meet each other at events, but also hopefully one day when the Cigar Academy becomes big enough, we can organize our own events. But definitely we will participate all the upcoming events in the next coming months and years. Definitely.
Something really important to mention on that sense in terms of that community, because we're talking about on today's podcast within the context and the conversation about tobacconists, the alumni of the academy and that community of students that have gone to level 1, eventually level 2 and 3. Our vision is that this becomes also space where, for example, a brand is looking for talent in a specific part of the world, and we have students that have gone through it and they live in that part of the world, and you can see their curriculum in terms of what they've studied and how they graduated. And more it becomes a space to find talent, to find people that we want to be able to bring into our organizations. So eventually a cigar maker could be looking into, it's almost like a LinkedIn, if you want to put it that
LinkedIn
way,
for cigars.
for cigars. So eventually that's what we want to approach it. And the other way around, if you're a student with excellent grades and already have some experience working at different locations and different capacities, that you're able to reach out to the members of the academy and say, hey guys, just putting it on my CV out there, I'm interested in working with you. Do you have anything for me? So we want to facilitate those connections and those conversations between businesses and individuals to more and more see a prosperous development of the cigar world, which is ultimately really hard. We all hunting talent. We want young people to come in, want fresh blood coming in, and we feel that being able, by providing a very tech-friendly, easy-to-use space that will help create that global community of the cigar world.
That's amazing stuff, guys. So if anybody wanted to come find more information about the Cigar Academy, where should they go?
Yeah, a good place to start is our website. You can go to thecigaracademy.com. You can also follow us on social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, where we try to put in pieces and share what we're doing in terms of events that we participate, workshops that we do. But the best place to start to get a real understanding and be able to sign up and register and begin, because that's the first thing. We love the idea of education. We all want this knowledge, but it takes a bit of effort and it takes that step. And that step can be taken directly on our website by registering. And we have ourselves behind it to support anyone in their journey from that moment they register all the way to graduation.
All right. I really appreciate you guys joining us. I think this was a really good talk, and I think everybody was able to gain a lot of information from it. So from the Cigar Snob podcast, thank you, Ricardo. Thank you, Thomas. We'll see you soon. Thanks for watching Cigar Snob on YouTube. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed what you saw. Also head over to our YouTube channel to check out more exciting content. And also head over to cigarsnob.com, where you can subscribe to our print magazine and receive it at home 6 times a year.